The sound of Henry's laughter drifted through our cramped apartment as I stared at the calendar on our kitchen wall. March 15th, 2019. The red circle I'd drawn around today's date in my previous life had been meaningless then. Just another Thursday. Now, knowing what this day would bring, the circle felt like a target painted in blood. I watched my 16-year-old brother sprawled across our threadbare couch, controller in hand, completely absorbed in his video game. His dark hair fell into his eyes the same way it always did, and he pushed it back with that familiar gesture that used to make me smile. Today, it made my chest tighten with a mixture of love and calculated resolve. "Helena, you're staring at me like I'm about to die or something," Henry called out without looking away from the screen. "It's creepy." If only he knew how close to the truth he was. In my first life, I had fought them. When Rodriguez and his men came for Henry at 3:47 p.m, I knew the exact time now because I'd replayed this day 1,000 times in my mind. I had screamed, clawed, and begged. I had thrown myself between them and my brother, promising them anything, everything. I had offered myself instead. They had laughed and taken us both. For 3 years, I watched Henry deteriorate in ways that no human being should ever witness. They broke his spirit first, then his body, then his mind. By the time the police raid finally came, my brother was a hollow shell who couldn't even remember his own name. I had survived. Barely. But Henry never came back from that place they took us. He died 2 months after our rescue, not from his injuries, but from what they had stolen from his soul. I spent the next 5 years hunting Rodriguez's network, working with law enforcement, testifying in courts, watching as some got justice while others slipped through cracks in the system. The day I finally cornered Rodriguez in that Bangkok warehouse, I looked into his eyes and felt nothing but emptiness. Killing him hadn't brought Henry back. Nothing could. Then I woke up in this bed, in this apartment on March 15th, 2019. 24 years old again instead of 32. My scars were gone. My nightmares temporarily silenced, and my brother was alive, whole, and completely unaware that in 5 hours our world would shatter. But this time would be different. This time I wouldn't fight them when they came. This time I would let them take Henry, because this time I knew exactly where they would take him, who they worked for, and how their entire operation functioned. I knew about the warehouse on Pier 47, about the shipping schedules, about Rodriguez's paranoia and his escape routes. I knew about the corrupt cops who fed them information and the judges who looked the other way. Most importantly, I knew they would be expecting resistance from a desperate sister. They wouldn't be expecting cooperation. "Henry," I said, walking over to sit on the arm of the couch, "do you remember what I told you about emergencies?" He paused his game and looked up at me with those bright green eyes that matched our father's. "The stuff about the hidden phone and the emergency contacts? Helena, we've been over this 100 times. I'm not 5 anymore." "Humour me." He sighed dramatically, the way only teenagers could. "If something happens and we get separated, I activate the GPS tracker in my shoe, I find a way to call the number you made me memorize, and I tell them Operation Phoenix, so they know it's real." I had spent weeks setting up this safety net after I'd returned, using every contact I'd made during my 5 years of hunting traffickers. Detective Morrison from LAPD's Human Trafficking Unit, Agent Williams from the FBI, and a network of survivors who had become activists. They all thought I was just paranoid because of some research I'd been doing. None of them knew I'd lived this nightmare before. "Good," I said, ruffling his hair. "And Henry? If something happens today, I need you to trust me completely, even if what I do doesn't make sense, even if it seems like I'm not fighting for you. Can you promise me that?" The seriousness in my voice made him sit up straighter. "Helena, you're scaring me. What's going on? Promise me." Okay, I promise. But what?" "Nothing you need to worry about right now." I forced a smile. Just keep that promise in mind, okay? The next few hours crawled by like years. I made Henry his favourite lunch, grilled cheese with extra pickles, and watched him eat every bite, memorising the way he hummed between chews and tapped his foot against the table leg. I helped him with his algebra homework, even though I knew he wouldn't need it where he was going. I listened to him complain about his chemistry teacher and his crush on Isabella Martinez from his English class. At 3:30 p.m, I sent him to his room to grab his basketball gear. We were supposed to walk to the park together, just like in my first life. In my first life, we never made it to the park. At 3:45 p.m, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Package ready for pickup. At 3:46 p.m, I heard the sound of footsteps on the metal stairs outside our apartment. Heavy boots. 3 sets. Henry emerged from his room with his basketball, bouncing it absently against the floor. Ready to go get destroyed in one-on-one? He grinned. The knock on the door came at exactly 3:47 p.m. 3 sharp raps, followed by a pause, then 2 more. Rodriguez's signature. "Who is it?" Henry called out, walking toward the door. "Stay back," I said, but my voice was steady, not panicked like it had been the first time. "I'll get it." I opened the door to find Rodriguez standing there with his usual smirk, flanked by 2 men I recognised. Turner, the big one with the scar across his knuckles, and Valdez, thin and wiry with dead eyes. They looked exactly as I remembered them, down to the cheap cologne that couldn't mask the scent of cigarettes and violence. "Afternoon, Miss Winters," Rodriguez said, his accent thick with false politeness. "We're here about your brother's debt." "What debt?" Henry stepped up beside me, confused. "I don't owe anybody anything." In my first life, this was when I had started screaming, when I had slammed the door and grabbed my phone to call 911. This time, I simply stepped aside. "Henry owes money to some very dangerous people," I said calmly. "Money I can't pay." "Helena, what are you talking about?" Henry's voice cracked with confusion and the first hint of fear. "I don't have any debts. I don't even have a credit card." Rodriguez's smirk widened. He hadn't expected this conversation to be so easy. "Your sister is a smart woman. She understands how these things work." "I understand perfectly," I said, meeting Rodriguez's eyes. "And I understand that fighting you will only make things worse for both of us." The confusion in Henry's face was breaking my heart, but I held steady. Everything depended on this performance. "So, what happens now?" I asked. "Now, your brother comes with us until the debt is settled," Rodriguez said. "Shouldn't take more than a few days if he's cooperative." "A few days?" Henry backed away from the door. "Helena, what is this? Call the police." "The police can't help us with this," I said, and that much was true. "This is about choices, Henry, and sometimes we have to live with the consequences of our choices." Rodriguez nodded approvingly. "Your sister gets it. You should listen to her." Turner stepped forward, but I held up a hand. "He'll come willingly," I said. "Won't you, Henry?" My brother stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "Are you insane? I'm not going anywhere with these people." "Yes, you are," I said firmly, "because if you don't, they'll hurt me too, and I can't protect us both." That stopped him cold. Henry had always been protective of me, even when he was just a kid. It was his one weakness and his greatest strength. "Helena, trust me," I said, looking directly into his eyes. "Remember what you promised me." For a long moment, we stared at each other. Then, slowly, Henry nodded. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay, I'll go." Rodriguez clapped his hands together. "Excellent. This is much more civilized than usual. You're both very smart." As they led Henry toward the door, he looked back at me one last time. The betrayal and confusion in his eyes cut deeper than any knife, but I forced myself to stand there and watch, I forced myself not to run after them, not to change my mind, not to repeat the mistakes of my first life. The door closed behind them, and I was alone. I counted to 60, then pulled out my phone and dialed Detective Morrison's number. "Morrison here." "Operation Phoenix," I said. "They just took him." "How long do we have?" Morrison's voice was sharp, professional. 43 minutes until they reach the warehouse. I need you to contact Agent Williams immediately and tell him the Pier 47 operation is live. Rodriguez is using the same route he used in 2019. Helena, slow down. How do you know? Because I've been tracking this network for months. I lied smoothly. I let them take Henry because it was the only way to get them all in one place. But we have a narrow window. Morrison was quiet for 3 seconds. I could hear him processing, deciding whether to trust me or treat me like a hysterical sister. "You used your brother as bait." "I used my brother as the key to dismantling the entire West Coast trafficking ring. There's a difference." "Jesus Christ, Helena, if you're wrong..." "I'm not wrong. Rodriguez has 17 people in that warehouse right now, including 3 other victims they picked up yesterday. The shipping container they're using for transport leaves the dock at 6:15 p.m. If we miss this, those kids disappear forever." Another pause. Then, "I'm calling Williams now. Where are you?" "Following them, at a distance." I wasn't, of course. I was sitting in my apartment, staring at the spot where Henry had stood 30 minutes ago. But Morrison needed to believe I was actively pursuing this, not sitting here fighting the urge to vomit from guilt and terror. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Agent Williams. "Detective Morrison briefed me," Williams said without preamble. "I need details. How many vehicles, what kind of security, any weapons you've observed." "Rodriguez drives a black Escalade, license plate 7 Charlie Delta 9941. Turner and Valdez are armed. Valdez carries a .38 in a shoulder holster. Turner has a knife in his boot and probably a gun. Rodriguez keeps a Beretta in his glove compartment." I rattled off details I'd memorized from police reports that wouldn't be written for another 3 years. "How do you know about their weapons?" "I've been watching them for weeks. This isn't a random kidnapping, Agent Williams. This is the break we've been waiting for." Williams was quiet, and I could almost hear him weighing the risks. "Helena, if this goes wrong and your brother gets hurt, then you make sure it doesn't go wrong." I hung up and immediately called Jake Romano, a private investigator who owed me a favor from my previous life. He answered on the second ring. "Romano." "Jake, it's Helena Winters. I need surveillance on Pier 47 right now. There's going to be federal activity there in about an hour, and I need an independent witness." "What kind of federal activity?" "The kind that's going to put some very bad people away forever. Can you do it?" Jake had worked human trafficking cases before his military injury forced him into private work. He understood the stakes. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Next, I called Isabella Martinez's mother. Isabella was Henry's crush, but more importantly, her father worked for the Port Authority and could provide critical intelligence about shipping schedules. "Mrs. Martinez, this is Helena Winters, Henry's sister. I need to speak with your husband urgently about container shipments leaving Pier 47 tonight." "Is everything all right, dear?" "No, ma'am, it's not. But it will be if your husband can help me." 15 minutes later, I had confirmation that container MSCU 7391847 was scheduled for departure at 6:15 p.m, destination Manila. The same container number from my nightmares. At 4:51 p.m, my phone rang. "Morrison. We have eyes on the warehouse. 3 vehicles, just like you said. Williams has tactical units positioned, but we need to wait for visual confirmation of the victims before we move. Henry is wearing a red Lakers jersey and dark jeans. He has a small scar above his left eyebrow from when he fell off his bike when he was 8. Helena. There are 17 people in there, detective. 17 5 of them are under 16. One of them is a 13-year-old girl named Carmen Vega who was reported missing from Fresno last Tuesday. Morrison's silence stretched long enough for me to count my heartbeats. How could you possibly know that? Because I do my homework. Now do yours. I ended the call and walked to my bathroom mirror. The woman staring back at me looked exactly like she had 8 years ago. Smooth skin, bright eyes, no visible scars from my first life's ordeal. But inside, I was 32 years old and carrying the weight of knowledge that should never exist. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your brother is asking for you. Rodriguez. He wanted me to panic, to come running to make the same mistakes I'd made before. Instead, I texted back, tell him I'm sorry. The response came immediately. Sorry doesn't pay debts. I didn't reply. Let him think he was in control. At 5:23 p.m., Jake Romano called. I'm watching through binoculars from the adjacent pier. Federal agents are in position, but something's wrong. There's unusual activity at the north entrance of the warehouse. My blood went cold. What kind of activity? 2 men just carried someone out on a stretcher. Unconscious male, brown hair. They're loading him into a white van. No, this wasn't how it happened the first time. Rodriguez was changing his pattern, probably because I'd been too cooperative. He sensed a trap. Jake, I need you to follow that van. Don't get close. Just track it. Helena, this is dangerous. That's my brother on that stretcher. I hung up and immediately called Williams. They're moving Henry separately, I said. White van, heading north from the warehouse. We can't split our units. We need everyone here for the main operation. Then, you're going to lose him. Helena, calm down. We have this under control. No, you don't. My carefully maintained composure finally cracked. Rodriguez knows something is wrong. He's improvising, and that means Henry is in more danger, not less. How do you know so much about Rodriguez's methods? The question I'd been dreading. I took a breath and made a decision that would change everything. Because this isn't the first time this has happened. Williams was quiet for 5 full seconds. What do you mean? I mean, I've lived this day before. I know it sounds insane, but Rodriguez took my brother 8 years ago. He tortured him for 3 years before the police found us. Henry died from what they did to him. And somehow I woke up this morning and it was March 15th, 2019 again. The silence on the line stretched so long, I wondered if Williams had hung up. Finally, Helena, I think you need medical attention. Agent Williams, at 5:47 p.m., Rodriguez is going to receive a phone call from someone named Constantine, telling he that the shipping schedule has changed. At 5:52 p.m., he's going to order his men to accelerate the timeline because he suspects law enforcement surveillance. At 6:03 p.m., he's going to try to escape through the storm drain that connects to the sewer system 3 blocks east of the warehouse. Another long pause. How could you know that? Because it already happened, and if you don't adapt to what I'm telling you, it's going to happen exactly the same way again. Helena? At 6:15 p.m., that container ship is going to leave the dock with or without Rodriguez. But the white van carrying my brother is heading to a secondary location, a house at 247 Maple Street, where Rodriguez keeps victims when plans change unexpectedly. Jake's voice crackled through my phone on the other line. Helena, the van just turned onto Maple Street. I felt a chill of vindication and terror. Everything was happening exactly as I remembered, except for the parts that weren't. Agent Williams, I said, you have 12 minutes to decide whether you believe me or not. But either way, I'm going to save my brother. Don't do anything stupid. I already did something stupid. I trusted the system to work perfectly the first time. I looked at the clock on my wall. 5:48 p.m. Rodriguez's phone is about to ring. William's line went quiet except for muffled voices in the background. I could hear him covering the phone, issuing rapid orders to his team. When he came back, his voice had changed. Sharper, more focused. "Helena, I'm sending 2 units to Maple Street, but I need you to stay exactly where you are. That's not happening." I grabbed my keys and the prepaid phone I'd hidden under my mattress. In my first life, I'd learned that backup plans needed backup plans. "The house at 247 Maple has a basement entrance through the backyard," I said, taking the stairs 2 at a time. "There's a loose board in the fence, exactly 7 feet from the back gate. Rodriguez uses it for quick escapes. How do you—" "Never mind. Just don't go there." But I was already in my car, engine running. "Agent Williams, in about 30 seconds, you're going to get confirmation that Rodriguez received that phone call. Then, your warehouse operation is going to fall apart because half his crew will scatter while the other half destroys evidence. We have contingencies. Your contingencies are based on normal criminal behavior. Rodriguez isn't normal, he's paranoid, ruthless, and he has an escape plan for every scenario you can imagine." I turned onto Maple Street as Jake's voice came through my other phone. The van stopped. 3 men went into the house. I can see lights in the basement windows. My chest tightened. The basement where they'd kept Henry during those first horrible weeks. Where they'd broken his arm when he tried to escape. Where they'd... No, this time would be different. "Jake, I need you to call 911 and report a gas leak at 245 Maple Street. Tell them you smell gas outside and you're worried about an explosion." "Why would I—" "Because in about 10 minutes, the fire department is going to evacuate every house on this block, and that's going to force Rodriguez's hand." Williams was shouting something in the background of our call, and I heard him say, "God damn it, she was right about the phone call." "Agent Williams, how long until your units reach Maple Street?" 8 minutes. That's too long. Rodriguez is going to move Henry again in 6 minutes, and this time he's going to take him somewhere I don't know about. I parked 3 houses down and studied 247 Maple Street. It looked exactly as I remembered. Pale yellow siding, overgrown hedge, broken streetlight that Rodriguez had shot out 2 years ago to create a dark zone. The basement windows glowed with dim light. "Helena, do not approach that house," Williams commanded. "I'm not approaching it. I'm going inside it." "That's the same thing." "No, it's not. Approaching suggests caution. I'm done being cautious." I ended the call and switched to the prepaid phone, dialing a number I'd memorized during my 5-year hunt for justice. Rodriguez. Hearing his voice sent ice through my veins, but I kept my tone steady. "It's Helena Winters." A pause. Well, Miss Winters. Having second thoughts about your cooperation? I want to make a deal." "You're not in a position to make deals." "I have information you need about the federal operation that's about to hit your warehouse." The silence stretched longer this time. I could hear muffled voices, footsteps, what sounded like equipment being moved. "What kind of information?" "The kind that will save your entire operation. But I want to see my brother first, and I want to hear his voice." "Your brother is indisposed at the moment." My hands clenched around the steering wheel. "What did you give him?" "Just something to keep him calm. He was asking too many questions." Sedatives. In my first life, they'd used a cocktail that had nearly stopped his heart twice. But Henry was young and strong. He could survive it if I got to him quickly enough. "Rodriguez, listen carefully. Right now, FBI tactical units are surrounding your warehouse. Agent Williams has 17 agents in position, and they're waiting for visual confirmation before they move in. But they don't know about the Maple Street house." "How do you know about Agent Williams?" "Because I've been working with him for weeks to set this up." Another long pause. I could hear him processing this, trying to decide if I was lying. "You set up your own brother?" "I set up you. Henry was just the bait I used to make sure you'd be in the right place at the right time." It was a dangerous game, convincing Rodriguez that I was the architect of his downfall rather than its victim. But I needed him to believe I had value, that keeping me alive served his interests. "Interesting," he said finally. "And what exactly are you proposing?" "I know William's timeline. I know which escape routes they've blocked and which ones they haven't. I can get you out of this, but only if my brother comes with us." "Us? You think I'm going to stay here and face federal charges for conspiracy?" "I've been planning this for months, Rodriguez. I know exactly how to disappear." Fire sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Jake had made the call. "What's that noise?" Rodriguez asked. "Gas leak on your street. The fire department is about to evacuate the entire block, which means you have about 3 minutes before they knock on your door." I heard Rodriguez curse in Spanish, then bark orders to someone nearby. Through the basement windows, I saw shadows moving quickly. "Where are you?" he demanded. "Close enough to help, far enough away to run if you try to double-cross me. Meet me at the back fence in 2 minutes. Come alone, and bring whatever information you have about William's operation." "I want to see Henry first." "You'll see him when I'm satisfied you're telling the truth." The line went dead. I grabbed the manila folder from my passenger seat, filled with legitimate police reports I'd obtained through Freedom of Information requests, mixed with details only someone from the future could know. It would be convincing enough to buy me time. The fire trucks were 3 blocks away now, their sirens loud enough to wake the entire neighbourhood. Lights were coming on in houses up and down the street. I slipped through the loose board in the fence exactly where I'd told Williams it would be. The backyard was dark except for light spilling from the basement windows. Through the glass, I could see Henry slumped in a chair, his head lolling to one side, alive but unconscious. Rodriguez emerged from the back door with Turner beside him. In the dim light, Rodriguez looked older than I remembered, grey threading through his black hair. But his eyes held the same cold calculation that had haunted my nightmares. "Miss Winters, you're full of surprises." "I'm full of solutions. Henry looks like he needs medical attention. He's fine, just sleeping off some anxiety medication." "What did you give him?" "Nothing that won't wear off in a few hours. Now, about this information you promised." I handed him the folder. "Agent Williams has been tracking your operation for 8 months. He knows about the warehouse, the shipping schedules, and 3 of your safe houses. But he doesn't know about this location or about your escape route through the storm drains." Rodriguez flipped through the papers, his expression growing more serious with each page. "How did you get this?" "I told you, I've been planning this for months. I needed your operation exposed, but I also needed to make sure I could disappear afterward. Working with Williams gave me access to federal intelligence. Working with you gives me an escape route. And your brother?" "Henry comes with me. Non-negotiable." The fire trucks were on the street now, their lights painting the fence in red and white strobes. I could hear firefighters shouting, doors slamming, the sound of equipment being deployed. Rodriguez looked at Turner, some silent communication passing between them. "There's a problem with your plan," Rodriguez said. "What problem?" "Your brother isn't just bait anymore. He's seen too much, heard too much. Even if I wanted to let him go, my partners wouldn't allow it. Then we make sure your partners don't have a say." Rodriguez smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You're suggesting I eliminate my own crew?" "I'm suggesting you choose between saving yourself and saving them. Because in about 30 seconds, this entire block is going to be crawling with emergency responders, and in about 10 minutes, federal agents are going to be kicking down your front door." A firefighter's voice boomed through a megaphone from the street. "This is the Los Angeles Fire Department. We have reports of a gas leak. All residents must evacuate immediately." Rodriguez's phone buzzed. He answered it without taking his eyes off me. "What? When? How many? His face darkened with each question. Fall back to secondary positions. Execute Plan C immediately. He ended the call and smiled grimly. It seems your information was accurate. The warehouse is compromised. So, we have a deal. We have the beginning of a deal, but first, you're going to prove your loyalty. He nodded to Turner, who produced a pistol from his jacket. You're going to kill Agent Williams when he arrives. I stared at the gun Turner held, calculating angles and distances. You want me to kill a federal agent? I want you to prove you're not wearing a wire and feeding information to your FBI boyfriend, Rodriguez said. Williams trusts you. He'll come close enough for a clean shot. And then what? The entire federal task force descends on this location and we all die in a shootout? Then we use the chaos to disappear through the storm drains. Your brother included. A lie. Rodriguez had no intention of keeping Henry alive once I'd served his purpose. But I needed him to believe I was considering it. There's a better way, I said. Turner's gun didn't waver, but Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. Williams thinks I'm an emotional civilian who got lucky with some intelligence. He's not expecting tactical thinking from me. We can use that. Sirens were multiplying outside. Fire trucks, police cars, and something that sounded like tactical vehicles. The evacuation was creating perfect cover for Williams' team to move into position. Get to the point, Rodriguez snapped. I call Williams and tell him I'm inside with Henry. I give him Rodriguez's exact location and beg him to come in quietly, because I'm afraid shooting will start. Williams thinks he's rescuing us both. And then you take Williams hostage instead of killing him. A live federal agent is worth 10 dead ones. You can negotiate safe passage anywhere in the world. Rodriguez studied my face in the flickering light from the emergency vehicles. You're suggesting I trust you to betray the man who's trying to save your brother. I'm suggesting you recognize that I stopped trusting the system the moment I handed my brother over to traffickers. Williams is just another tool, Rodriguez. Same as you. It was the most honest thing I'd said all day. Turner looked between us, confused. Boss, this feels like a trap. Everything feels like a trap right now, Rodriguez muttered. Then, to me, make the call. But Turner keeps his gun on you the entire time. One wrong word and your brother dies before you do. I pulled out my phone and dialed William's number. He answered before the first ring finished. Helena, where are you? I'm inside the house with Henry. Rodriguez is here, basement level, armed with at least 2 men. Henry's unconscious but breathing. Jesus Christ, I told you to stay away. Agent Williams, listen carefully. Rodriguez knows about the warehouse raid. His crew is scattering, but he's trapped here because of the fire department evacuation. If you come in quiet, through the basement entrance, you can take him without a firefight. Helena, get out of there now. We're 2 minutes away. I can't leave Henry. Rodriguez will kill him if he sees federal vehicles. We're coming in, with or without your permission. Williams, wait. Come to the back fence, alone. I can get Henry out through the basement, but only if Rodriguez thinks you're cooperating. Rodriguez nodded approvingly. He was buying the performance. Absolutely not, Williams said. I'm not walking into a trap. Then my brother dies and Rodriguez escapes through the storm drains while you're breaching the front door. A long pause. I could hear Williams breathing hard, probably running toward the house. 2 minutes, Helena. Then we're coming in hard. I ended the call and looked at Rodriguez. He's coming alone. Perfect. Rodriguez pulled his own weapon. Turner, get the boy. We're moving to the storm drain entrance. What about Williams? What about him? Once we have him, we negotiate our way out of here. Turner disappeared into the basement and returned 30 seconds later, carrying Henry over his shoulder like a sack of grain. My brother's face was pale, his breathing shallow but steady. Seeing him unconscious brought back every nightmare from my first life, but I forced myself to stay focused. "This way," Rodriguez said, leading us toward a metal grate hidden behind overgrown bushes at the back of the property. As Turner set Henry down beside the drain entrance, I saw my brother's eyes flutter open. The sedative was wearing off faster than Rodriguez expected. Henry's gaze found mine, confused and frightened, but alert. I touched my finger to my lips, then tapped my shoe twice. Henry's eyes widened slightly. He remembered the GPS tracker. Footsteps approached through the loose fence board. Williams appeared at the edge of the yard, weapon drawn but lowered, scanning for threats. "Helena." "Here," I called. "Rodriguez wants to talk." Williams stepped into the backyard, and I saw the moment he recognized the trap. His training kicked in, body tensing, weapon starting to rise, but Rodriguez was faster. "Federal agent, you move another inch and the girl dies." Williams froze. "Let them go, Rodriguez. This is between you and me." "Actually, it's between me and freedom. But you're going to help me achieve that." Rodriguez gestured for Turner to grab Henry again, but my brother had other plans. The moment Turner reached for him, Henry rolled toward the storm drain and dropped through the opening. "Son of a..." Turner lunged after him, but Henry was already gone, sliding down into the drainage system. "Let him go," Rodriguez snarled. "We still have the agent and the girl." But I was already moving. In my first life, I'd learned hand-to-hand combat during my 5 years hunting traffickers. Rodriguez wasn't expecting a 24-year-old college graduate to know how to disarm someone. I grabbed Turner's gun hand and drove my knee into his solar plexus. He doubled over and I twisted the weapon away from him. Williams took the opening, putting 2 rounds center mass into Turner before pivoting toward Rodriguez. Rodriguez's shot went wide as he dove for the storm drain. Williams' return fire splintered the wooden fence, but Rodriguez was already disappearing underground. "Helena!" Williams grabbed my shoulder. "Are you hit?" "I'm fine. Henry went into the drainage system. The GPS tracker in his shoe will lead us to him, but Rodriguez knows those tunnels better than anyone." Williams was already on his radio, calling for backup and drainage maps. "How do you know about GPS trackers?" "Because I've been planning for this day longer than you can imagine." Tactical units flooded the backyard within minutes. But as they secured the scene, I realized something that made my blood run cold. The storm drain Henry had escaped through. It didn't connect to the main drainage system like I'd thought. It led to a separate network, one that Rodriguez had modified over the years. Henry wasn't escaping. He was falling directly into Rodriguez's backup plan. Williams followed my gaze to the drain opening. "What is it?" "We need to move now, because this isn't over." I dropped down into the storm drain, Williams right behind me. In the distance, I could hear Rodriguez's voice echoing through the tunnels, calling out to Henry in sing-song Spanish. "Ready or not, little brother, here I come." But this time, I was coming too. And this time, I knew exactly how this story would end. Rodriguez had taken my brother from me once. He wouldn't get the chance to do it again. In the darkness of the tunnels, I smiled. Because while Rodriguez thought he was hunting Henry, he had no idea that he'd just walked into the trap I'd been setting for 8 years. This time, I was the one with the advantage. This time, I was the one coming for him.